Dan and Corey here, welcoming you into Libservative.
The great fundamental issue now before our people. We, the people, cannot turn back.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
Corey's confused.
I'm confused. I forgot how to do this.
He, of course, is Corey Walsh.
And he is Dan Griffin. And we had a hellacious week last week, Dan.
Corey's car broke down.
Yeah, so for all of our listeners in Florida, don't drive your car on water. We didn't have a Category 5 hurricane here in Michigan, and there was a big puddle by work that I tried to avoid. Hit it, and the ultimate result of that was me chasing fucking computer codes with a scanner all week long, from the accelerator position throttle sensor to the throttle body sensor, to having to clean out the PCIM, to having to clean out a muffler. Not worth it, boys. Stay out of the puddles with your car. That's my PSA for the week, especially for the people in Florida who are dealing with a hell of a lot more water than I am right now.
I can't even remember. We couldn't even get together for like our Tuesday meeting last week. I can't even remember why. I think that was my fault.
Yeah, you had something to do with work. And then I was like, well, it works out for me because I'm going to be under the hood of my car. And then, yeah, when things snowballed into each other, I started my second class for college that week. It was hell. It was hell, Dan. But the old car is back on the road. It's running.
And we hope you enjoyed the rerun of our interview with Tristan Taylor from Detroit Will Breathe.
Yeah, that's a good conversation. If you missed it, go back and listen.
If you were listening to it for the first time or re-listening to it, we had a good time with Tristan that night. Lots of good conversations, some agreements, some disagreements, but that's what this show is supposed to be about. So we're going to do a little bit of like rapid fire housekeeping, but I'm sure you want to like talk about what we're drinking first, eh?
Well, first I was going to say Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is podpage.com/Libservative. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Instagram and Twitter at LibservativePod. You can find our transcripts at libservativepodcast.wordpress.com. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com.
It's got a great memory. This
subscribe. One call to action. I'm not going to give you a bunch. Subscribe and listen.
Yeah, just sit down,
please. Like tell a friend. How about that? I will. I'll sit down. I am sitting, damn it. What are you drinking, Dan?
I'm drinking the what is it? I'm having a brain fart on it. The Angel's Envy, the rye.
Oh, okay.
I forget what it's called. I forget. Like I haven't drank this in a while, and I put it to my lips right before the show started. And I was like, I forget about like that like mapleiness that it has to it. It's got like I don't know. It's interesting.
I am drinking some of Blake's hard ciders. American Apple Imperial. It is not a sponsor, but they just recently came out with this one, so I started taking little nips from it here and there.
No, but if we had a shot at a sponsor, Blake's might be up there on the list.
Maybe, yeah. Local craft brewer. I'll drink ciders on the show every time if they want to send them my way.
Yeah, that's good.
And then I got some Third Wind bourbon from Bay City, Michigan. This is all actually I'm drinking all local shit. Damn, look at me.
Look at you. You are.
Look at me. Would you just fucking look at me?
Local favorite.
Being all local and shit.
Now we made a.
Oh man! Oh, that's another thing.
A promise to slow down the cursing.
Yes. So I already have to take. Well, actually, I don't have to drink yet, right? Until we make the rule.
Yeah. What's
fuck, piss, shit, damn, hell, cunt. Me and
an episode of
Dan and I, starting now, I guess we decided to play a little game on the show that we had to drink if we swear. So we wanted to see how drunk we were gonna get.
First, we have to set the parameters. Like, what constitutes swearing? Like, I don't think asses and pisses are swearing. I'm thinking like FS and anything off color about female anatomy.
What about male anatomy?
Yeah.
The
Okay.
D word, dong.
I'll put that one in there.
Can't say dong.
Put that in there.
But yeah, Dan and I decided, I don't know, I just thought it'd be funny that if me and him played Drink If You Swear, just to see where it takes the show. So that's the plan for tonight, right?
It's gonna be, I'm gonna have a sore morning tomorrow.
You want to get a bunch of swear words out? A little Tourette stab.
I think I'm okay. I kicked my dog earlier. I got all the frustration out. I'm kidding. I did not actually kick my dog. Jeez. What's that?
Next week, you're going to play Drink If You Kick Your Dog. And Dan's going to be the only one drinking.
It's scene in Family Guy with Wilford Brimley. Woke up and
seen
struck
it.
my wife. My wife's been dead for 20 years. Who the hell did I hit? Oh, man.
So what else is new, Dan? What you listening to? What you watching? All that fun stuff.
I was watching the what's the new? I'm having so many brain farts tonight. I don't know what the problem is. I don't think I had enough coffee today. But the new Ken Burns documentary on PBS, the U.S. and the Holocaust.
Ooh,
started that one. That's it's pretty interesting. And you know what? It's interesting because it really does show that, the way we how like in America, or especially in the West, we glorify our role in World War II. And we everybody knows about the fact that we put the Japanese people in internment camps, but
we did everything in our power to stay out of it, put a bunch of Japanese people in concentration camps. And then in the very end, we just came up, did some cleanup in Europe.
Yeah.
And then dropped some bombs in Japan and then said, we did it. We won the war.
The whole thing about what Ken Burns is basically trying to get at is that like the United States kind of knew what was going on in Germany, didn't really
when it came to the Holocaust? Yeah, dude, there were ships that were coming with Jews on them.
And they were being
across the Atlantic, and we were sending them back going, no, stay out of here.
Yeah, horrible immigration policy even back then. What's interesting about it is because we're going through, and we'll get to this a little bit later on in the show, but we're having this redux of immigration policy with obviously DeSantis shipping migrants up to Martha's Vineyard and
using people as pawns.
Yeah, and it's just the same arguments. The arguments that we're having today about immigration, the arguments that we had 20 years ago about immigration, we were having back in the 40s and the 30s and the 20s, shortly after there was some pretty bad immigration policy put in. It was all based on, ethnicity. It was all based on where these migrants were coming from, what their backgrounds were, not being able to properly vet them. This is not a new argument, is what I'm getting at. And this documentary is really good at kind of pointing that out. We're in the same arguments today about immigration that we were having during World War II. We were having, basically ever since the poor immigration policies of the 1920s.
Sounds about right. It's pretty on par for America.
Yeah.
Same issues. We just dress them differently and kick them down the road until they bubble up again.
The only thing that's changed is the geographic areas of the world in which these people are coming from. That's the only thing that's shifted.
So I personally have been watching something way less intellectually stimulating. I've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, the FX show about that. It's a mockumentary about vampires living in Jersey. Have you ever seen that show?
No, Corey.
Oh, Jesus Christ. You got to watch that show. Oh,
you say I have not.
I just swore.
Gall darn it.
Gosh darn it, Dan, let me tell you, this show swears a lot.
What the
But it's a really, really good show. It's about these like incompetent vampires who has a documentary crew following them around. And then they're just bumbling about doing their shit, their crap.
Their poo.
doing their poo. Well, vampires don't poo except for old Colin Robertson, one of the vampires. He's an energy vampire. He gets his energy from other people's like energy, so he just drains other people's energy versus the rest of them who suck blood. Great show. It's hilarious. I recommend it.
This
Dan.
sucks more than anything that has ever sucked before.
You take that back. You gosh darn son of a bee.
You know what's funny is I can use the drops to curse because it's not technically coming out of my mouth. So this is gonna be fun.
Is that a loophole? Dang it, we didn't cover that. Onto our branding shift real quick. I don't know if anyone's noticed. We have a new logo, new cover photo. We've had we did a couple ads and we had some, I guess you could call them focus groups in the comments that were calling us crazy right-wing extremists and
clearly
without
actually listening to our content or reading any of our content.
Yeah,
Corey and I came to the conclusion. I don't know which one of us came to it first, but I know we were both thinking it at the same time. So, like, is the American flag just a symbol? Is it actually just a symbol of right wingers now? Is that?
I guess so. I guess the American flag means you're just a racist conservative.
How do we know that this country's gone to hell in a handbasket, Corey?
Well, what's really funny, dude? So we were running that ad with the American flag as our logo. You know, it's just a profile picture. Everyone who's been listening to the show for at least a year knows the logo we have now. All these people, just more right wing extremists posing as centrists, trying to sway people. Like we had some weird ulterior motive. And then so literally, I pulled the ad. I changed our logo. I changed our the message that was with it. Reran it. And the comments are like night and day. It went from people calling us crazy conservatives to saying, well, centrism isn't terrible. The nuance in the comments, you notice the difference in the comments? Yes, boom, right away. Right away, the whole tone. Everyone's like, oh, yeah, this ain't bad.
I was thinking the next thing we should do is like put, I don't know, like a rainbow flag in the background and just kind of see where it shifts from there.
Well, what I also did too,
or like a Ukrainian flag.
Right. I think what is also kind of funny is in the old ad, it said, a podcast that delves into the nuances and intricacies of politics and current events that deserve more than an oversimplified explanation served in a polarized fashion. It sounds great to us. I think people thought we were being pompous assholes using big words.
Being sarcastic.
And then I changed it to just two intellectual idiots trying to navigate through all the political noise. And everyone was just like, hey, yeah, I like this. It's almost like no one likes big words.
You know, it's so funny. It's like you think of the word intellectual, and it's like you have to be some sort of like bookish person. Like that's not us.
No, we're just two intellectual idiots navigating through the political noise.
You can be stupid and be an intellectual. Corey and I have proven it. I think we've proven it.
Yeah. Yep. What my buddy? What did he say? He's a Steve, the one who was on the show. He calls it being a. What did he call it? It was another word for intellectual idiot.
This is how you know
he called it intellectual moron. Basically the same thing, but
yeah. Here we are.
Here we are. New branding. Go ahead, check out the page. Actually, you know what? I didn't change it on Twitch yet, I don't think, or YouTube. I'm looking up at our little logos up here.
That's right. We'll fix it. Is
it okay? Is it okay, Dan? I don't know. I don't want to be considered a right-wing extremist. I don't need the FBI listening to my conversations more than they already are.
There's like 8 extra people that are going to continue thinking we're right wingers for just a little while longer. We'll get this all fixed. We'll get it all figured out. I promise.
What's really funny too is me and Dan were talking about this, and Dan is like, "Well, the American flag, but the lines are a little blurred." Thinking he's Robin Thicke over here, singing blurred lines, but the people aren't buying it. So we did a rebrand.
A little rebrand.
We'll see how it goes.
Where else did you want to clean up, Corey, since we did not have a live show last week? I remember
I just do like a 5-10 minute rundown of all these different things that I've just had in my head screaming for the last 2 weeks that I haven't been able to air my grievances on.
Let's let you get it out, and then we'll see how many times you curse. Go.
Have I cursed yet?
Yeah.
I've been trying not to. I did. I drank for it. I'm going to take a couple drinks before I start.
Are these preemptive drinks for the
That they are, Dan. That they are. So, first thing I got on the docket. Loperamide, a common anti-diarrhea medication, can help treat core symptoms associated with autism spectrum disorder. The drug activates the U-opioid receptor, helping to improve social behaviors. So, I think this might ultimately be like one of the positive effects from COVID, because if you remember when COVID first happened, they were starting to run all these different drugs and everything through these AI systems, trying to figure out what exactly would work against it. I think this might be an offshoot of that, and they found out that loperamide, which is basically Imodium, it hits the same receptive in the brain that helps with social behavior, and that there's a chance that this loperamide might help people with on the autism who have behavioral issues with autism. It might help quell that, and just not necessarily just like make them all docile, but just help them stabilize their mood. And I think that's good news. Next on the list, the Pentagon is opening a sweeping review of clandestine psychological operations. This is a Washington Post article.
You
and
love this
apparently
stuff, man. You love calling out the three-letter agencies. It's one of my favorite things about you.
Oh, dude, I love it. So the Pentagon is apparently, Twitter and Facebook has brought concerns to different federal departments and the White House, with concerns over the Defense Department's attempt to manipulate audiences overseas, and that in places like China, in Russia and all that, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these fake accounts over there trying to speak pro-American views, just like those countries do here. And so what it's basically saying is it looks like that we are just as bad as them when it comes to trying to influence local elections and things like that. On to the next. China has jumped, or China's Russian gas imports jump in the first 8 months, while LNG exports hit record levels amid supply diversions. China's natural gas imports from Russia via pipeline almost tripled in the first 8 months to 2.39 billion. And then they exported 448 million worth of LNG to Europe, Japan, and South Korea and Thailand over the same period. So they're buying cheap natural gas from Russia and then sending it to other people and selling it to them, repackaged to avoid the sanctions at a ridiculously high level. And that's where Russia's still getting its money from.
Well, we've been seeing that with merchandise for forever. What's to make you think that the CCP?
Oh, yeah, China's been doing that with merchandise and saying it's from Taiwan and things like that. But it's the same thing that Saudi Arabia is doing. Saudi Arabia is buying super cheap oil and gas. Right? Huh?
Not even that, but just like making fake Nikes and what have you.
Right, yeah. No, but yeah, people like Saudi Arabia, for example, is buying all of its oil right now from Russia super cheap, but then still selling us oil at a ridiculously high price while they're funding their own power plants with cheap oil from Russia. A big one that I think is interesting, and that evil, terrible Elon Musk, that right-wing authoritarian fucking elitist, is actually using his Starlink to offer internet to Iran right now, just like he did in Ukraine. A girl named Masa Amini was killed after visiting Tehran from one of the outskirt countries, where she was like from a small village on the outskirts in Iran, and her family went and visited Tehran, and some of her hair was showing, and so she got arrested on a subway, and then she died in captivity. By the terrain with the terrain, the moral police. They're literally called the morale police. Yeah. And so she died in their custody. So everyone in Iran is losing their shit right now. And God bless them. I hope that they, not necessarily, even if they don't overthrow the regime there, I hope that they knock this theocracy down a couple pegs to give women and everyone there personal liberty and freedom like we appreciate and get to experience here in America.
Well, it's a great time because their leader is 83 years old and apparently in bad health. So that apparently is one of the reasons why these protests have kind of sprung up. Obviously, this young lady's death was kind of the trigger.
Yeah.
To the
it's their George Floyd.
But here's the thing, though. I have like mixed emotions about Elon throwing Starlink over Iran because, I mean, to me, it's kind of like a positive little publicity stunt for Elon because they don't have the infrastructure to be able to use the Starlink satellites in Iran.
Well, no, I guess. I mean, I'm
yeah, sure there's some infrastructure set up there that would.
I mean, like Iran. What's interesting about Iran is it's not in Afghanistan, it's not a Syria, it's not in Iraq, it's not a devastated country that has no infrastructure. Like, these are educated people.
Sure.
Like, people in Iran are smart. Like, it's an actual country that has like an actual infrastructure, but like a lot of their Wi-Fi and their internet and stuff has like, like just government blocks. So I'm curious to like if Starlink is just this accessible Wi-Fi internet that's now a blanket over the country. If they just turn on their Wi-Fi, do they just have access just to hook up to it? Because if they do, then
there are like receptors on the ground. I forgot what the hell they're called, but there are receptors on the ground,
cell phone towers or whatever.
Which is why it makes more sense for a country like Ukraine, who actually has more of them than Iran does.
Yeah, and they're not trying to like actively block it and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, there probably is a way that it's still working for people. He wouldn't actually do it, I assume, if it wasn't anything. But like, I'm assuming like stuff there is still getting out. You know what I mean? Like, there's still people talking about it, no matter what the Iranian leaders are saying.
No, they have some ability in Iran to link up to it, but it's not.
No, they're an educated people,
robust.
Right, and like, have you ever looked up like photos from like Iranian advertisements or pictures from Iran like in the 70s before like the theocracy took over? Their ads for everything they have, like bikinis and everything, looks exactly like ours. It's just Arabic writing on it versus like English writing. It's wild to see how fast like a theocracy and like how that can just flip the script.
Yeah. What else did you have? Policing
the
bill,
Democrats are working on a stock trading bill, but a lot of I mean, like the House is working on a stock trading bill, but of course Democrats and Republicans both in a bipartisan fashion are fighting against it because they want to make their money. We're talking Dianne Feinstein's, Nancy Pelosi's and her husband, and then Dan Crenshaw's and Marjorie Taylor Greene's. Doesn't matter if they're red or blue. They're trying to screw me and you. You like that? I just made that up.
Oh yeah, I see what you did there.
You like mean, that?
You mean they work? You mean Democrats and Republicans work for the same team?
Yeah, isn't that insane? Make no mistake, no matter how much they pretend to hate each other, if you come in with a third-party option or try to do anything to change the system, they quickly get lockstep together.
Or if you fuck, hold on.
What was that?
With their money. I just wanted to take my drink.
Oh, you know what? I probably should drink one or two because I probably swore. And then how about the House passed a police funding bill that is going to head towards the Senate, which actually a broad bipartisan. I'm looking at the New York Times right now. A broad bipartisan majority voted 360 to 64 in favor of the centerpiece of the four-bill package called to Invest to Protect Act, which would give $60 million a year for 5 years to local police departments. The funds could, now that's an important word right there, the funds could be used for purchasing body cameras and conducting de-escalation training, as well as other activities.
Don't buy it.
Other activities is pretty broad, Dan.
Don't buy it.
And so we're giving 60 million people, and so the article goes on to say, but a backlash by progressives who balked at sending money to police departments without stronger accountability measures to address excessive use of force or other misconduct nearly tanked the bills before they could be considered. So it sounds like there's no accountability to how this money is going to be spent. And now, in a perfect world, this money would be spent on mental health therapy, hiring people and giving better training to people to deal with people on the spectrum or mental health disorders. But it's looking like it's just going to go to a bunch of bulletproof vests and probably some more NRAPs.
It's gonna go into some collective fund.
How convenient, Dan, that right now we're ramping up our military industrial machine, building all these different military stuff, which means we have all this extra stuff we got to get rid of. And now every city has $60 million to spend on things like MRAPs, ARs, bulletproof vests, and other
make no mistake.
military equipment that they can wear outside of schools while there's a shooter inside.
Make no mistake, this bill is going to do nothing more than further militarize municipal police departments. Like that's what it's going to be, which is the opposite of what we need.
Yeah. And
It's
you know what?
absolutely the opposite.
So my interesting take on this is I'm also looking. So that was a New York Times post. I'm looking at a New York Times article. Now I'm looking at a Washington Post article, and it is insurers force change on police departments, long resistance to it. So so I'm looking at a St. Anne Police Department in Missouri, whose chief of police, Aaron Jimenez, is known as saying St. Anne will chase you until the wheels fall off when it comes to their high octane pursuits and chasing people in cars. Well, recently, a man named Brent Cox was just minding his own business in his car, and it got smashed into by a police car. Let me see. I want to make sure it's the police car. A patrol officer spotted a white minivan that was expired license plate, flipped on his lights and siren, and when the driver failed to stop, gave chase. The driver fled in rush hour traffic at speeds up to 90 miles an hour as other officers joined in the pursuit. 10 miles later, the van slammed into a green Toyota Camry, leaving its 55-year-old driver, Brent Cox, permanently disabled. So essentially what happened, running from the police is never a good idea, but some jackass ran from the police because he had an expired license plate, and the cops chased him. And because of that, this poor other man who had nothing to do with it, 10 miles away, got his car smashed into because the police were chasing a guy over an expired license plate, and now he's permanently disabled. The St. Anne Chief of Police stood behind the high octane pursuits and he said that it doesn't matter, we're still going to do this. Well, that is until the insurance company that protects the police department from these type of things, that they don't have to pay out of pocket when they disable somebody because of their malfeasance. The insurance company said, we're not going to cover this anymore. So now the Jimenez guy goes, I didn't really have a choice. If I didn't do it, the insurance rates were going to go way up. So now they're changing their hot pursuit case. So now people aren't going to be disabled 10 miles away from an initial crime of having a license plate that isn't registered.
Yeah, that's just it, right? Was it Catherine Maggie Ward said in her Reason podcast earlier this week? Occasionally, she says things that I really like. I think she might have gotten this from somebody else, but don't invent a law that you're not willing to kill somebody over.
Right. Every single law. I actually said that in my monologue. Just remember, any law ever legislated ultimately has an arm. With the end of the arm is a gun pointing it at you to enforce it.
Yeah, when it comes to because you know the narrative is like, well, this guy should have just not run.
You should have just obeyed the law.
It's his fault that this 55-year-old man ended up paralyzed. And yeah, it partially is his fault, right? Like,
yeah, I'm not discounting. I'm not blaming police because some person ran from the cops, but
if you don't engage in a dangerous chase with somebody over such a trivial fucking crime, I got to drink now.
Exactly. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
You don't have the problem. Right. Exactly.
So I'm wondering what's going to have a bigger impact on police departments reforming their policies. Is it going to be all of these different House bills, or is it going to be insurance companies telling people that they better knock it off or they're going to stop defending them? And honestly, I think the free market's going to get the win.
That's what you were saying. And like when you said, do you think the free market is going to fix the way that we police in this country? At first I thought you were going with like the anarcho-capitalist argument about that.
No, they have settlements out the wazoo. Do you know how much money we've spent on police settlements?
No, but where I thought you were going to go with that was the anarcho-capitalist argument of like, there just shouldn't be government police at all, which, look, we could not even argue, but we could discuss for hours, the anarcho-capitalist view of policing in this country. But I thought you were going to go with, just privatized police would fix the problem. That's honestly where I thought you were going with this.
Oh, no. I was saying that like a private insurance company telling a police department that like, hey, if you keep running your cars into 55-year-old men and paralyzing them, we're not going to keep paying for these settlements. Mm-hmm. Is going to have a way bigger impact on these police departments than the government trying to implement all these different laws.
Yeah, you mean bad cops getting fired for doing bad work?
Yeah,
essentially.
exactly.
Because they're now they have to be held accountable financially, which is ultimately all that matters to basically everyone. So
I also had one of the issues that we have in America when it comes to like different like things like renewable energy and stuff is special metals. I forget what you call them exactly, like precious metals like nickel and cobalt and stuff like that.
rare earth metals.
Yeah, rare earth metals. Apparently, deep sea mining can be an answer to that because right now Africa's on lock with China when it comes to them. I have the DNC blocked a vote on dark money ban, and Democrats dominate dark money. And in 2020, Democrats doubled in 2020, Democrats doubled their funding of how much money they had in dark money versus Republicans.
You don't say, because both parties work for the same team.
Yep. The value of the dollar is skyrocketing and all this crazy inflation and crazy instability in the world. Oh, and then I guess we're going to talk about the pipeline that can lead into us talking about Putin's bringing up conscription of people.
Corey, we're live. We're not doing show prep here.
I'm just running through my list real fast of all this shit I had. And then what do I have here? People cucking to a monarchy while crying about communism proves that propaganda is a son of a bitch. And then I think that's pretty much it. Oh, I have the Macron interview. So if you watched our show at all, we've been trying to really dive into the nuance of this whole Ukraine thing and like what's trying to make Putin tick to give us a better understanding of where just this guy is at. And I compared him to a school shooter. And I got some pushback on that. But here is Macron in a much smoother way.
The president of France.
The president of France telling Jake Tapper what he thinks about Putin and what him and Merkel are trying to do.
And afterwards, President Zelensky, President Putin, and both of us. Because we were convinced with Chancellor Merkel that spending all this time to try to implement the Minsk agreement signed in 2014 was the best way to avoid an escalation. I think what we got in 2019 was very positive for Ukraine and was definitely a progress towards peace. But as I told you, post-COVID-19, there was a totally new situation. So he had a window of opportunity and he decided to completely break the linearity of this situation and go to the war. I do believe that all the discussions we had were useful. Second, I think in his own logic, I'm not saying this is an explanation or I don't give any excuse, but we have to take into consideration that there is a lot of resentment on the Russian side. He has a feeling that post-1990s, we didn't respect him properly. I think it's not a reason to do what he did.
But it's his mindset.
It's his mindset. So we have to understand that because it's always more efficient to be respected and to try to find a way forward when you have this discussion. Third, I think it's useful because, for instance, thanks to this dialogue, we managed to organize this mission with the international agency to go to the nuclear plant of Zaporizhia, to have an independent mission. And we are, I hope, finalizing a very important agreement to protect this nuclear plant and to go towards demilitarization, but at least to be sure that there is no more weapons in this area. I want to insist on that. We have to avoid, obviously, Russia winning this war.
So that's pretty much it. He just talked about how Putin had resentment since the 90s against the West because they hadn't been treating him with respect. And regardless of whether or not you want to respect Putin, on a world stage when someone has nuclear weapons, you have to come to the table at least with a level playing field.
No, there should be some form of mutual respect. And what's interesting about the way that people talk about Putin, it's almost, in a weird way, it's almost like the same way they talked about Trump, where they would kind of talk out of both sides of their mouth, which is like, oh, he's just he's just an idiot who doesn't know what the hell he's doing, or like he's a dangerous, horrible mastermind that's going to destroy the planet. Well, which is it?
Right.
Because it can't be both things. And it just depends on which way the narrative feeds. And either way, you're not being very respectful of Vladimir Putin. And that's, I mean, I don't know if that's like the just the libertarianism in us, Corey, about, letting other countries kind of do things the way that they do them. You don't have to agree with the way Putin runs Russia, but you also have to factor in what would happen if Putin and Xi Jinping did the sort of pre-war things to the West that we've done to them since the fall of the Soviet Union.
Right.
Like,
The context, damn it.
Yeah.
The context. And it just helps you give a better understanding of exactly what's happening. It doesn't give Putin a pass on what he's doing. What he's doing over there isn't right when it comes to a sovereign country. He's trying to change someone else's borders, but with the context of the idea that in his mind, after being isolated during COVID, and since the 90s, feeling like Russia's just been pushed around, you keep poking a bear, eventually it's going to take a swipe at you.
Yeah,
Is it justified? No, not at all. But that is what's happening over there. And armed with my opinions, he said, "Did you guys see Trump's latest statement? Is that the one where he's regarding? Is that the one where regarding where he said he would be the mediator for the for meeting between Biden and them?" And I just find it interesting that it's like that's where we're at. It's like we got to have Trump be the mediator for this. Like it's like we're sending Dennis Rodman over to North Korea to talk to Kim Jong-un. Like it's Biden or Trump or any of these people. We just have these idiots that just keep getting put in charge to where it's like, that's the best we got. America's supposed to be the greatest country in the world, and that's the best we got.
Sending Kamala Harris to speak
to Taiwan.
South Korea. It was South
Oh yeah. That's it. That's the best we got.
Which partisan idiot do we want making sure there's no nuclear war? Which one? Take your pick. It's like a fucking Mortal Kombat like opening screen of
oh my gosh.
Choose your political moron. And I have to drink after that one.
Oh yeah. I just said oh my gosh, but I feel like I did swear, so I'm gonna drink too.
So yeah, you feel like you always swore. So the big news of the week here is the Nord Stream pipeline explosions, if whatever they're calling it these last few days. And this story is it's so strange because it should be really scary, because you now have people talking about this being an energy war, which is pretty interesting and probably pretty accurate, because that's basically Putin's ace in the hole. It has been the whole time as far as getting energy to the West, and the West's mistakes of shutting down their nuclear power in Europe and what have you. And I look at this and I go, okay, so now the West is screwed, right? Because any chance of reopening Nord Stream 1 and opening Nord Stream 2 for the first time is gone, at least for the considerable future, because we have no idea how much this is going to cost, how long it's going to take to fix, and whether or not it would just happen again, right? So I look at this and I go, yes, it definitely looks like Putin has more incentive to blow up his own pipeline because he has it shut off anyway, and now he wants to permanently cut off natural gas from Europe. So yeah, it looks like Putin has the most incentive. But call me a conspiracy theorist, the way all of this is gone and the amount of propaganda coming out of both sides and not knowing who to believe, you look at this and you might say, the fact that Putin has more incentive to blow up this pipeline is all the more reason for somebody in the West. I'm not saying it's the United States. I'm not saying it's Germany, Ukraine, Poland. It doesn't matter. Somebody in the West to do this as a false flag operation because Putin's the one that has the most incentive. I'm not going to throw that possibility out.
And again, this is why we need to make tinfoil hats before we talk about the stuff that deals into conspiracy theories. But Biden did say the Nord Stream pipeline will end. We'll put an end to it. I'll make sure of it. And Putin was using that pipeline as a bargaining chip. And now that's just not even, now there's not even a chance of him saying, well, if you back off, I can give you guys oil again. Now there's just no chance of that happening. Completely destroying one of the lanes to a path of diplomacy. So it makes, I guess, I mean, it would, like, I'm not saying it's true, but there's, what would be the word I'm looking for? Like, to have that thought process isn't completely out of left field. America is known for doing false flag attacks.
Yeah, it's not. It's
now I am definitely not saying it was America. I like in a world right now where every single thing we do is leaked. If America did it, we would know. I'm tired of pretending, like, what is it? Everyone tries to think that America is like House of Cards, the show, when it's really more like Veep, just a bunch of fucking idiots just running around. Oh, we can't use, like, stop trying to attack plastic with these, like the first episode they're talking about, they offended plastic industry by using paper straws in the White House or whatever. That's literally what it is. It's just a bunch of fucking, it's just a mess. But it's just interesting. My other thing is, like, what if it was just, like the Kremlin's been talking about how they can't properly maintain the pipeline because of the fact of all the sanctions. I would like to really think that, like, it was just a fuck up, something happened, which the chances of that is virtually nil because it was two different pipelines that were hit and stuff like that.
Yeah, based on the seismology and stuff. And
would you say, like, what if it was just some crazy environmentalist?
Yeah, that, like, some rich environmentalist that got a hold of, like, an underwater drone or something like that.
Or it could even be a false flag for Putin to try to shore up his waning support in his country. Like right now we have what? He just did that conscription of 300,000 soldiers. And yeah, he did a conscription of 300,000 soldiers to be brought over to be put, which is they're probably going to be sent to the, in quotations, referendum parts of eastern Ukraine, who has 90% approval or 90% voting to make them a part of Russia. This might be something to shore up support home, saying, look what the West did, look what they did. It could be a false flag of their own.
Well, that's exactly it. And armed with my opinions, I'm not going to throw any of his comments up here because they're pretty long. They'll take up the whole goddamn screen. But he's basically insinuating that because Putin spent so much money on Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 that he does not have incentive to blow up his own pipelines. But the problem with that I have with that is he certainly does have incentive, because why wouldn't he want to blow up his own pipelines to ensure that, hey, look, there's no way now that natural gas is getting to the West if he feels desperate? He's not making money on these pipelines right now, and apparently he doesn't have any plans on making money on these pipelines for a while. And we just talked about the fact that he's taking a lot of these fossil fuels, I don't know what percentage is what, and sending it to China under false branding. Anyway.
Yeah, they haven't been making money on their natural gas going through the Nord Stream in months. And instead they're selling it to China and Saudi Arabia and all these other countries, and then we're buying it anyways at the regular price.
Yeah, so
he's making the same amount of money.
It's a forcing the West's hand kind of issue. Like, okay, we're not getting these turned back on. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he makes the point of how Biden said for sure that he was going to shut it down, and he did. And it was kind of ominous of how he said it. But right now, we are not going to jump to any conclusion of either just saying, oh, for sure it was America. Oh, or for sure it was Russia. Oh, for sure it was the West. Oh, for sure it was Ukraine. I'm not gonna put myself into a corner where all of a sudden I have to backtrack and say anything when things change, because the possibility of any three of these fucking people doing it right now, based on the evidence that we have, because it's all just conspiracy theories and theories being thrown around that we don't have any evidence of any of it. I'm not going to say who it was, even though I don't trust the American government. I definitely don't trust the Russian government. And also, Dan, I want to say that obviously our rebranding is working great because we just got called. What did he say? He said, I hope the entire electric throws your side out of office come November, which is, I don't know what side he's talking about because we fucking hate Democrats too.
I don't know.
So,
he also thinks we don't know.
Your side, which side? The side that's in power? Great, throw them out. Which power is going to be in charge? The other ones? All right, great, throw them out.
He also thinks we don't know what deductive reasoning is. So I mean, it's clear that Armed with My Opinions is somebody you have an opinion. That's fine. You've made up your mind, and that's okay. That's right.
That's fine. Yeah, we just haven't made ours up yet. I need some more evidence.
That's exactly right.
I'm not putting my foot in my mouth on this based on just a couple frothy bubbles coming out of the ocean, people talking about an explosion, and then two of the biggest propaganda fucking weaponized countries, Russia and America, both telling me opposite opinions when I have no facts in front of me. Could it have been America? Maybe. Could it have been Russia? Maybe.
Both have incentives to do this.
Because we've been talking about wanting to shut down the Nord Stream pipeline since fucking Trump was in office. You want to talk about which party was talking about trying to shut down Nord Stream pipeline? Both parties were. So
here we are because they work for the same team. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with regards to Nord Stream and the whodunit? We don't know. And here's the thing. To Armed with My Opinions is to speak to everything that he's just said.
Aubrey said it. I'm literally the only person I know didn't blow it up. You see what I mean? That's what I'm saying. Like
But here's the thing.
We don't know who fucking did it, but you're muddling the conversation by assuming one side or the other did it. But that's the premise of the show. It's like, yeah.
Anyways. I'm not even going to say what I was going to say. Did you have anything else you want to talk about? Oh, what? Well, no. What I was going to say is to Armed with My Opinions' points here. Even when we find out who did it, if we ever do, how long is it going to actually take for us to agree on it?
Hi, Pandora Mask. Oh, hey, Brightness. I'm sorry, say that part again.
How long is it going to take once we actually do find out who blew this up, whether it was the West or Putin or some rich environmentalist with an underwater drone? How long is it going to take for us to actually agree on it if we ever do?
I don't think we're ever going to know, Dan.
Facts don't matter. Facts have never mattered.
I don't think we're ever going to know.
Well, facts, no, it's not true. Facts.
Because of the fact that all of the media is going to be so muddled in who done it. And that's exactly like where we were at is like, who done it? We don't know.
Speaking of Russia, Corey, you'll like this this banner I'm about to throw up here. An American hero turned enemy of the state, Edward Snowden, officially receiving his Russian citizenship. And you look at this and you go, like, happy for Edward Snowden, I guess, because now he legitimately can't be extradited to the United States for being an American hero.
It's a damn shame.
Really, really sad that an actual American hero has to resort to becoming a fucking Russian citizen in order to ensure his safety from his former government.
Right. It's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that someone who gave the information to let the American people know that the American government was spying on them had to in turn run to Russia to hide there because no Western fucking country would defend him or protect him. And it's insane to me that Edward Snowden is over there in Russia criticizing Putin and criticizing America, and he hasn't even been harassed for it.
It shouldn't be necessary.
It shouldn't be necessary at all. He's a whistleblower. We have laws to protect whistleblowers.
Well, not to mention, like, I don't know if you mentioned this, but he's also criticized Putin and was still given Russian citizenship. Don't you find that interesting?
It is interesting.
Somebody who's, I don't know, honestly, though, I don't know how famous he actually is in Russia, right? Because I don't know, does Russian media talk about Edward Snowden and what he's done? Maybe they do. I have no idea. That's something I'm remarkably ignorant on. So
I just know that he's there hiding from the American government.
If
and
they
it's almost like the only safe place he could go.
If they don't know who he is, it's easy for Putin to go, all right, here you go. here's another poke in the eye of the American government over there. It's just, I don't know. We don't have a whole lot. I don't think there's really a whole lot to say about this.
It's a shame he had to find peace in a country that we consider an enemy, not the people, but the regime, because we don't believe in them running their own country. We don't agree with the way they run their own country. That he literally had to denounce for being as American as fuck. Drink.
Go ahead and slug it down, killer.
And taking it to the government, which was literally how our country was founded, turns around and exposes the NSA spying on Americans without due process in the Fourth Amendment or without a warrant or anything like that, has to go to a authoritarian country and live there in peace.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
Snowden exposed the NSA spying on its own citizens. Thank him for his service and stop whining about his personal decisions. We literally just thanked him for his service and are whining about the fact that he has to hide in another country for his service.
He's not even listening. He's already made his. He's
just mad at us. He said that the other person chugged semen and fluoride. I don't know why. But he thinks I guess our rebranding worked really well, Dan. All we did was take away the American flag and our icon, and now we're just fucking leftist cucks, apparently.
It absolutely did. So do you want to move? What do we want to move to next? You want to move to Hurricane Ian, obviously, because here we are.
Oh, yeah, and how fast this is going to get politicized?
How will the uniparty use disaster to make you hate your neighbor some more? Because honestly,
I saw Occupy Democrats being like, Biden isn't Trump. And Biden's going to send a bunch of help to Florida, and DeSantis isn't even going to thank him.
Well, you're already seeing, like, you're already seeing, even from people in the Biden administration, talking about how they, our predecessors didn't do this for, I can't remember the names of the hurricanes anymore, but obviously the one that hit Puerto Rico, and we're just not going to do that. We're going to work as a team with Governor DeSantis and whoever needs our help, we're going to give it to them. Just pushing it out there like it was a foregone conclusion, because it should be. Why do you need to say it? Why do you need to say it when America?
Because the Democrats take the virtuous high road.
When the American people get smacked in the face by a natural disaster, yeah, it's your job as the federal government, whether you're Democrat or Republican, to send FEMA in and send help. That's like, you have one job. It's really simple on paper. It's really simple to just like send everybody where they're supposed to go. It shouldn't have to be a pissing contest over who's more virtuous when it comes to when natural disasters hit the United States and their territories.
This one's actually kind of funny, because did you see that clip? Biden did say for all the people in the trajectory for for all the people that are in the trajectory for the hurricane, make sure you get vaccinated. He did actually say that.
I missed that. I'm not. I doesn't.
He did. I saw something about it. Yeah. But
I thought he was talking about two things at the same time.
No, just so you know, my blood is pure. I ain't got no vax blood in me.
Oh man, I got the first two, but after that, I wasn't getting any more pokes.
You're not on your fifth booster, Dan?
No, absolutely not. I'm not getting any more. One more pokes for Dan. Those first two were more than enough.
You don't want no ouchie Fauci's or Fauci ouchies?
No more for me. So we haven't really gotten to the aftermath of this storm yet. I think it's probably actually at 8:26 here on Thursday.
Oh, okay, so that's interesting.
Leaving Florida.
That's interesting. Biden hasn't, according to Brandy, Biden hasn't talked to DeSantis yet. So it's some weird
well, wait a minute.
Where it's when the parents are just staying together for the sake of the kid, but they're like sleeping in different rooms.
Hasn't talked to DeSantis yet post-storm, because honestly, I have heard conflicting reports from both sides. I've heard DeSantis saying that the Biden administration never talked to him. We've heard the Biden administration saying that they did. Now, based on where your political affiliations are, you're probably going to believe one side or the other. But so I don't know, which is it? I really don't know.
Give me the damn transcripts.
But again, though what Brandy said there is another weaponized way to politicize a disaster for DeSantis, because one side's lying. I really honestly don't give a shit which side is lying, but one side's lying and the other side is using the communication or lack thereof as a political weapon to make you hate your neighbors further already.
Yeah. And it's been that way all the way to Katrina and probably even further. But like even Katrina was the same way when they talked about Bush's terrible reaction to it, and then Trump with his terrible reaction to Puerto Rico, and there's the videos of him throwing the paper towel, which I thought it was like this. Dude, that's so fucking dumb how everyone freaked out about that. Like they act like Trump wasn't doing anything except going down there and throwing paper towel at people.
Trying to soak up the hurricane water.
You remember all those memes? God, it's so cringe. Yeah. I wish I can go back and slap this shit out of 2007.
He's got a great memory, this guy.
Either way, I'm hoping that they get their shit taken care of. I don't care of the political banter around it. There's millions of people right now in Florida who don't have power and major storm surges, and we're going to probably see the death toll rise. And I just want to make sure that as many as my fellow Americans as possible get the help they get, and that FEMA comes in and makes sure that people are reimbursed for their shit getting fucked up and stuff like that. Regardless of whether or not they're a Republican or a Democrat.
But we have to blame it on somebody, Corey. Like, it's the first thing.
Blame God. How about that? Let's blame fucking God because he's the one that sent this big-ass hurricane the size of fucking Florida to raise the sea levels.
You got to blame climate change for Hurricane Ian. Did you see Don?
Climate change is God's fault, Dan.
Did you see Don Lemon get schooled like by accident? I can't remember who he had on. I just saw the clip, but Don Lemon had some supposed expert on to like confirm that Hurricane Ian was caused by climate change. And all he said, all this guy said was something that was just really common sense or just like really easy to understand, which is like, I wouldn't blame any one single event. I think it's or whatever he said. I think it's dangerous to blame one single event on climate change, which is true because obviously before climate change was even a thing, there were still hurricanes. You know what I mean? So it's like it's really hard to blame one weather event on climate change. But that's weather. I like to do.
Weather and climate are different things.
Yeah, just ask Neil deGrasse Tyson; he'll tell you.
All right, what's next?
Let me go back to the banners here. Well, you want to recourse the hold on, I'll get it up. Recourse the immigration issue, because 2 weeks ago when we were on the show, the whole fiasco of Ron DeSantis flying migrants to Martha's Vineyard had just happened, and I think you were in agreement with me. But what I had said was, it's sad, but also kind of funny and like a pretty decent troll job by Ron DeSantis. And I'll stick to that. I say like, okay, dude, you made your point. Point is well taken, which is that sanctuary cities and particularly progressives and the coastal liberal elite want to talk about how migrants are people and they're fleeing bad situations and coming to the United States for a better opportunity. Like that's the progressive narrative, right? But then you see these progressives putting these people on buses and sending them to Cape Cod because they can't handle 50 migrants because they think they're actually really gross and they don't actually want to touch them. So like calling out the hypocrisy, right? Ron DeSantis did that. Point made. Well done. I'll give him points for that. Nice job. The problem I have,
DC, they still haven't done shit.
That's the thing. The problem I have is that 2 weeks later, we're sitting here. We talked about immigration a little bit earlier on in the show and about how we've been having the same arguments essentially since the 1920s about immigration because of bad policy then up to bad policy now. And you look at Ron DeSantis and you go, you made your point. It was kind of funny. I'm glad all these people were, well taken care of in the end because they are still human beings. What are you actually going to do about immigration without using the words wall and deportation?
Right.
Because those are two words that have been used by conservatives for a long time that don't work. We've
Yeah,
seen
and
that they don't work. What's
So
the
I'll
point?
say it again. Using people as political pawns to make a point is kind of despicable. It's gross. But for the progressives who are trying to say that like these I almost swore again, but I caught myself that time. That to say that they tricked and duped these poor immigrants who are so apt and versatile and I don't want to use the word resilient. Resilient's the word I want to use. That they were able to travel thousands of miles and face cartels and other governments and all of this stuff to
Corey,
get to the border.
Corey, that's the bigotry of low expectations. That's what that is. The bigotry of low expectations. It's the same. It's the same thing that people talk about with regards to college admissions, right? These people are so broke and poor. We have to help them. And when you say that, you think you're being moral, and maybe you really are in your own mind.
But you're assuming these people are broke, poor, and dumb because like Biden said. What did Biden say?
You're also underselling them as human beings.
Yeah, poor folk are just as smart as white folk.
Oh, that's right. He did say that. Oh
yeah. And it's just like these people have been ravished traveling thousands of miles to the border, and someone comes up to them and goes, "Hey, hop on this bus. We'll take you further from the border." And they look around and see hundreds of Border Patrol agents. And then this bus is like, "We're going to take you to a city that they said they're not going to deport you." They're not tricked. They're not dumb. They get it. They know that the further away they get from the border, the less chance of them being deported is. And when they're like, "All right, listen, you don't want to be here. We don't want you here. We're gonna move you to a city that wants you."
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go. Let's fucking get the hell out of here then. And that's basically what happened. If they got moved, like if they threw them on buses and told them we're gonna take them to a sanctuary city and then covered their heads in black, and they, covered their faces in black bags and then moved them back into Mexico, I'd be really pissed. But they said, "Yeah, we're getting you out of here. Go on, get." Oh, that's mean, sure, whatever. But these people got moved further into the country of where they wanted to be anyways.
But isn't this at the end of the day? Isn't this? And I feel like immigration's been used like this forever since the 1920s, as we said earlier. We're having the same arguments now as we had then. It's just another example of the establishment Democrats and the establishment Republicans working for the same fucking goal, right?
Yeah.
We can always run on immigration. We can, if we just don't do anything, we can always run on immigration. The Democrats can run on, being the accepting party and allowing immigrants into the country. Meanwhile, you have Barack Obama building cages and making sure that the gross immigrants, stay away from the real people. But then you have Republicans running on immigration in a way of, we're going to build a wall and we're going to kick all the illegals out, and they never do that either. So it's just another example of both of the uniparty working to make sure that they're the only two parties that remain in power.
To get their political talking points to make the other side sound bad without any doing real legislation to make it work.
You got it, sir. Anyway, do you have anything else?
I feel like I'm getting rapidly drunk because I keep taking drinks for swearing.
Yeah, I'm almost out of beer.
Should I get out of my monologue?
Yeah, we'll do your monologue. I'll go take a leak while you're doing that because I don't really care what you had to say. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know you don't.
And I'll grab a drink. So yeah, let's get after it.
All right. So my monologue this week is titled "Prisoners of the Free World." I'm gonna take a drink really quick.
Yeah, you better get after
a little
that.
sip of my whiskey because I think there's a swear word in here, so I gotta cover that.
Just chug the whole damn thing.
I can't, Dan.
I can't know what's going on.
I can't do it.
That's so sad.
All right, here we go.
Nancy Pelosi there.
I shared a map of America on our Instagram and Facebook recently that you might have seen regarding prisons and colleges in our country. States shaded orange had more prisons than colleges, and states shaded purple had the opposite. More colleges than prisons. The idea that this is even newsworthy is one thing, but if you had to guess which color the majority of our country is, orange or purple, what would you say? The fact that I'm even writing about this, I'm sure gives you a decent clue that a majority of the country is about as orange as a goddamn jack-o'-lantern. 37 states to be exact. Both ruby red and deep blue states covered in orange on this map have more prisons than colleges. In the freest country in the world, we have the largest prison population that outpaces communist authoritarian countries like China and Russia. In fact, it's almost a wash when you combine the two compared to the land of the free. What causes it? And how do we fix it? An overcriminalization attitude towards we the American citizens has led us on a path outpacing both allies and foes when it comes to incarcerating our fellow citizens. An explosion of vague laws that have abandoned our original legal system based on the English common law. This has led to Boston civil liberties lawyer to write the book 3 Felonies a Day, referring to the number of felonies the average American unwittingly commits on a day-to-day basis. For example, don't get lost on a snowmobile in a blizzard. If you end up on protected land, your snowmobile can be taken without due process due to civil asset forfeiture, and you can face time. Own a seafood restaurant? Careful. Vague laws around lobster tail sizes can get you put behind bars, even if you unwittingly sold them after your distributor sent them to you. Faked a sick day? Don't tell the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia, or don't let the late Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia find out. Under the wire fraud statute, codified at Title 18, United States Code, Section 1343, makes it a crime to devise a scheme or artifice to defraud or to obtain money or property through materially false representations or promises. A complete disregard of the basis of criminal law, of where there has to be a criminal intent, has led to more and more incarcerations in this country. Destroying homes and lives of people where there was virtually no victim. This lulling ourselves into freedom mindset seems to be a mix of convenience coupled with temporary security that has utterly destroyed the ideas of liberty in this country. Why worry about what's causing issues in the community when you can just lock them up? Don't you feel safer now? In the words of Hunter S. Thompson, in a closed society where everybody's guilty, the only crime is getting caught. In a world of thieves, the only final sin is stupidity. Now let's add a shot of capitalism to that prison overpopulation and overcriminalized society. A total of 26 states and the federal government use private prisons. These private prisons create contracts with states where they come in, build a private prison to solve the overburdens of prisoners due to strenuous vague laws, and then create a minimal occupancy statute in the contract, meaning the state has to have a certain amount of prisoners sent to the prison or they have to pay for empty beds. Now, we wouldn't want that, would we? We wouldn't want to find ways to prevent crime because we wouldn't want these private companies to get their cash, right? What a business to be in where there's no risk, and boy, oh boy, is it profitable. But don't take my word for it. Just look at the stock options for these private prisons. That's right. You can trade on the profitability of your fellow incarcerated Americans who have been caught up in the legal system that has a monetary incentive to lock you and them up. These entrenched issues in the American system, a system that was once designed to protect you from the government, a system turned on its head to profit on your liberties being stripped, and one possible crazy solution to remove the profitability on the legal slavery of American citizens, even if Brett Favre wants them to build the bleachers for his daughter's new volleyball court. Maybe, just maybe, we get back to an older style of governments where if there is no victim, there is no crime, because every law, every ordinance, ultimately has an arm holding a gun there to enforce it.
Corey, let me just say this. Your libertarian is showing.
Sorry, bud. Sorry about that. I'm sorry I have a staunch opinion that if there's no victim, there's no crime.
Yeah, I mean, generally I agree. There was a very libertarian monologue, so I congratulate you on that. The only issue is libertarians aren't actually ever going to do anything about it. because they're never going to come to power because they're always infighting with each other. That was just a chance for me to take a dig at libertarians, even though I
know they never have power because they all try to out libertarian each other.
even though I generally agree with libertarian principles. But yeah, I don't even really know how to respond.
Aubrey said your libertarian is showing. Great monologue. Thank you, Aubrey.
Yeah,
I
very
appreciate
good.
it.
It was I mean, it's pretty simple. What basically the fact that I don't even know where I was going. Go ahead. Yeah,
me neither. I'm
me
just
off.
trying not to swear.
Write this listing ship for me. I took too many drinks and
Basically, what I'm saying is it's like
completely had a brain fart.
we have got to this point to where it's literally if you fart in the wrong direction, you can get thrown in jail for it. And we're supposed to be the free country. And like Hunter S. Thompson says, the only crime in America really is getting caught because everything is literally a crime at this point, to where the goal is to just not get caught. And then the only fatal sin is being stupid enough to get caught.
Which is, kind of harkens back to the new policing bill that we talked about earlier in the show. Is that not is the private prison system not a way to rationalize further militarization of our police? And honestly, and maybe Aubrey can answer this question if you're still watching. Privatizing prisons, right? Free market, right? It seems like kind of a libertarian idea. However, it's also a piece of the free market that is in cahoots with government, which is not a libertarian idea.
Right. It falls into the same thing of student loans and like Obamacare, essentially, where it has to be either one or the other. It's either free market or a socialized issue. And when you try to mix it with band-aids on a free market, because we created all these laws to where, like Joe Biden's 1994 crime bill, all these different things, the war on drugs, created this ridiculous supply of prisoners to where the federal government is like, well, we can't afford this. So they tried to privatize it to save a couple bucks, to where they could have just not made all these laws to make these people criminals in the first place. You wouldn't have to rely on the private companies to do it. And that's kind of where I'm at, where it's like you're one mistake away, you're one heartbeat, one random thing away from becoming just a part of the system.
So Aubrey answered the question. She says, we explained it perfectly. I don't know if she's talking about you or me. It doesn't really matter. But the current quote unquote private prisons are an arm of the government as much as schools and banks are, not real free market capitalism.
Because it's the government incentivizing a private industry.
Right. That's not really free market. So
Exactly.
Thank you, Aubrey, as always, for checking out the show. Yeah. Stop putting so many people in jail and stop militarizing the police. There you go. Let's get libertarian. I think we only had one other thing. I don't know if you still want to talk about this. How much time we got? Oh, I think we're okay. We never had a chance to get to Joe Biden's 60 Minutes piece. And I honestly, I want to talk about it a little bit.
Okay. So I'm going to come from this angle where, and we can elaborate on it more. Joe Biden's 60-minute piece, as soon as he said that, so he was on there talking, he talked about a bunch of stuff. He talked about Putin. He talked about Taiwan and all these different foreign policies. And as soon as he mentioned defending Taiwan, his White House came in with its broom and dustpan in hand, trying to clean up his gaffes, saying, well, the White House policy hasn't changed on Taiwan. Even though Biden says that we're going to defend Taiwan, we're not really going to defend them. But we might. But we're not going to. But we might. But the policy hasn't changed. But we might.
Well, and that's one of the that was what was so interesting about this piece to me. It's not, I mean, nothing Biden said surprised me. I wasn't blown away by anything he said for either a positive or a negative reason. But what I was thinking about is his similarities to Donald Trump and also his differences. Right?
The way
Because,
he would say something and the White House would come in behind and go, whoa, 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 that's not what he meant.
well, no, but that's the difference, right? Because Donald Trump would not put up with a Kellyanne Conway. And by the way, can we just say that as much as they drove us nuts, Donald Trump's press secretaries were so much better. They were
in lockstep with the president.
They were so much better, and they did a really good job of kind of like explaining their way around things that Donald Trump said without ever saying that they were not really what he meant. And that's one of the big differences, right? Is that you have like Donald Trump would never stand for his crew to come out afterwards and be like, yeah, that's not really the White House's policy. Like, there's no way Donald Trump would ever stand for that. So that's the big difference. But what I'm looking at as far as similarities is that, you and I are big fans of Jimmy Dore. And one thing that Jimmy Dore likes to say is that the reason that the establishment hated Donald Trump so much, he says this in one of his stand-up specials, or one of his podcasts, I don't remember, but he goes, the reason the establishment hates Donald Trump so much is because he accidentally tells.
No, he said that at the stand-up we were at.
He did, but he's also mentioned it on his podcast. So, and I think about that and I go, yeah, that's like, it's really it may be a little bit oversimplified, but like, it's right. Donald Trump accidentally told the truth sometimes in the wrong ways. But I look at this and I go, Joe Biden does that too. Did you leave us, Corey? Are you gone?
No, I'm still here.
Oh, you had to change cameras?
My shit's all fucked up.
That's right. I'm still here. I can hear you. You sound a little tinny, but we're good. But yeah, and here's one example that I wanted to give of Joe Biden kind of accidentally telling the truth. I'm going to share my screen here real quick.
Mr. President, first Detroit Auto Show in 3 years.
Yeah.
Is the pandemic?
Yeah. The pandemic is over. We still have a problem with COVID. We're still doing a lot of work.
Pandemic is over. Like, that's Joe Biden accidentally telling the truth. Why is it accidentally telling the truth? Because the pandemic can't actually be over from a monetary perspective. Because if the pandemic is over, all the emergency use authorizations go away.
There's 136 executive orders.
It honestly, if the pandemic is over, it makes his student loan forgiveness really in peril. If the pandemic is over,
the Emergency Authorization Act
on it. But the pandemic is over. If you notice, no one's wearing masks. Everybody seems to be in pretty good shape. And so I think it's changing. And I think this is a perfect example of it.
The car show was a reminder that gasoline prices hit a historic high last June, in part because Russia cut fuel supplies in its war on Ukraine. Mr. President, the price of gasoline is down about 26% from the $5 high.
Here's what you're not going to hear Joe Biden say. You're not going to hear Joe Biden say that us cutting back on getting our own oil supply is a huge reason why gas prices skyrocketed.
Or the record low number of leases being his record number of leases for federal land not being actually, oh fuck, I can't think of the word. There's a word I'm trying to look for. You know what I mean? My logical is getting the best of me.
All right, Scott Pelley will help us out.
What can you do to keep that price down while Vladimir Putin is throttling energy supplies?
There's a couple of things we've done. For example, remember I got some criticism for releasing 1 million barrels of oil a day from a strategic petroleum reserve. And then along came the industry saying they'd produce another 1 million barrels a day by the spring. So I think we're in relatively good shape.
Vladimir Putin is going to try to break your will.
How many times did Scott Pelley just say Vladimir Putin right there?
Oh,
at least
more
4.
than once. Yeah, more than once, less than 10.
One of the things that drives me nuts about 60 Minutes is like, I'm one of those weirdos that still kind of enjoys watching 60 Minutes on a Sunday. It's like, I had a friend put it to me this way. 60 Minutes is like the signal that the weekend is over, right? Like you got to start getting ready for work the next day. It's like an American staple. And so many times they still do such great work. But so many times you get shit like this because Scott Pelley is talking to the president of the United States of America. And like he challenged him in this piece, like kind of just enough to make it seem like he was
To make it seem edgy.
complicated. Yeah, but it was just all like he said Vladimir Putin more than goddamn Joe Biden did
on Ukraine and use energy prices to do it.
Sure he is. But, you know, we, the United States, are in much better shape than anyone else is, and relative to Russia particularly. But he's been trying that for a while. He's not going to succeed. Anybody want to?
Oh, hold on, wait a minute. I just stopped that at a really bad time.
Than anyone else is, and
Right.
relative to Russia particularly. But
I know
he's been trying that for a while. He's not going to succeed. Anybody want to go to Washington? Jump in.
Fucking idiot.
Is there like a rule where didn't we already go over this at the beginning of his presidency? Is there like a rule where he's not supposed to actually be driving a car?
Yeah, now he's inside a building with people walking around. I would be terrified if I saw our president behind the wheel of a car.
Grandpa. I'm gonna move on to the next thing here. Where is it? Where are we at? Like 8:45. Here we go.
War is extremely high, but we're going to stay with them as long as they need our help.
You're already north of $15 billion in terms
right.
of those commitments. How far do you go?
To Ukraine.
As long as it takes.
Ironclad commitment.
Yes.
As Ukraine succeeds on the battlefield, Vladimir Putin is becoming embarrassed and pushed into a corner.
So, with Joe Biden saying, as long as it takes, we know what that means. That means our taxpayer dollars being shipped to Ukraine, the weapons that probably shouldn't exist but do, that our taxpayer dollars paid for being shipped to Ukraine. And it's not a matter of not being empathetic to the Ukrainian people. But when you say as long as it takes, that's a really scary thing, I think, for Americans to hear.
Yeah.
And I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
This is it.
Don't.
Don't.
Don't. Don't.
Don't do it.
3 times. Don't.
It will change the face of war unlike anything since World War II.
And the consequences of that would
Oh, you mean when we use nuclear weapons? Sorry.
Right.
be what?
I'm
What
not
would the
gonna
U.S.
speculate.
response be?
You think I would tell you if I knew exactly
You think
what it
he'd
was?
tell you, Jack?
You think I'd tell you if I can remember?
Of course I'm not gonna tell you. It'll be consequential. They'll become more of a pariah in the world than they ever have been. And depending on the extent of what they do will determine what response would occur.
I'm gonna move up to this is the last part I actually want to play. Find it. Here we go.
Our interview runs into controversy. What should Chinese President Xi know about your commitment to Taiwan?
We agree with what we signed on to a long time ago. And that there's a one China policy, and Taiwan makes their own judgments about their independence. We are not moving, we're not encouraging their being independent. That's their decision.
But would U.S. forces defend the island?
Yes, if in fact there was an unprecedented attack.
After our interview, a White House official told
Hold on.
us U.S.
What you were
policy
talking about.
has not changed. Officially, the U.S. will not say whether American forces would defend Taiwan. But
They actually put it in the piece.
Yeah, it cracks me up because like he's constantly making gaffes and his press secretary is just doing a terrible job at trying to cover for him. Like just recently, what was it? That poor girl, Jackie something, I forget her last name, from Indiana, I believe it was, died in a car accident. And then there was recently a bipartisan bill. She was a Republican representative. And then just recently on TV, Biden was like talking about this bipartisan bill. And he goes, and where's Jackie? He goes, where's Jackie? I want to thank her for this. And it's the girl that died.
Yeah.
And then instead of the press secretary coming in and taking the L, she's like, There's a lot on Biden's mind about this, and it's just like, stop just covering for him. I guess
The
that's your
commander
job,
in chief
sure, but
had a view of his own. So, unlike Ukraine, to be clear, sir, U.S. forces, U.S. men and women would defend Taiwan in the event of a Chinese invasion.
Yes.
Oh,
For the first
oh, yeah, I don't care. And then they go into the Trump shit. I don't give a fuck about that. But it's just like, do you like? How does he? He doesn't even realize what he just said.
he
doesn't.
doesn't. No, he doesn't.
He doesn't even realize what he just said. This is. I don't know. I've lost it. I've lost all control of President Biden and his dangerous rhetoric, right? Because that was always the thing about Trump, right? Dangerous rhetoric, dangerous rhetoric, dangerous rhetoric. He goes, if there's an unprecedented attack on Taiwan, well, there's never been an attack on Taiwan, so any attack would be unprecedented. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
We're good. Corey's squirming in the seat. He's got to piss.
I'm sorry. You saw that private chat? I was like, dude, I have to piss so bad.
Corey's got to piss like a racehorse. Close us out, Corey. Tell the people where they can find us.
All right, I will.
Don't pee your pants.
Libservative Podcast is found on all social media and podcast platforms. Our website is podpage.com/libservative. We can be found at Libservative on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, Instagram, and Twitter at LibservativePod. You can find our transcripts at libservativepodcast.wordpress.com. Our TikTok videos can be found at Libservative Podcast, and you can reach out directly at libservativepod@gmail.com. I have been drinking so much because I have been swearing, and I think we should do this again because it's funny, but I really have to go to the bathroom.
All right.
Like, follow, share, tell a friend about the show.
Take off. I'll close it out. Until next time, he's been Corey Walsh.
And he has been Dan Griffin.
We have been Libservative, and we are out of here.